Gianni Infantino built the biggest World Cup in history around a friendship with the President of the United States. That friendship just landed him in front of the European Parliament. 72 lawmakers have put their names on a letter, demanding a formal investigation into the FIFA president, and it's tied directly to a single red card in a single group stage match. So let's get into how one suspension turned into a continent-wide political fight over the man running world football. The whole thing traces back to Folarin Balogun, the American striker who was America's leading man at this World Cup. And now Brussels wants Infantino held to account for what happened to him. Let's set the stage properly, because everything the European Parliament is doing right now hangs off one moment on a football pitch. Balogun was shown a red card during the US victory over Bosnia-Herzegovina on July 1, which normally would make him ineligible to play in the team's next game. Standard stuff, red card, one match ban, that's football. Except it wasn't the end of the story. FIFA lifted his suspension for a match on Monday, after US President Donald Trump intervened with Infantino. On behalf of the 25-year-old striker, read that again. The suspension didn't get lifted because of a video review or an appeal from the US Federation going through normal channels. It got lifted after a phone call from the president of the host nation. Trump didn't hide it either, he went on record about it. Trump acknowledged asking FIFA to take another look at Balogun's case, calling the red card horrible, though he said he did not demand an outcome and could not tell Infantino what to do. He framed it as just a nudge, not an order. But then he told reporters exactly why he thought it mattered. "I think it would have left a big stain," Trump said, adding that the US and Belgium should each have their best players available for their match. And on Truth Social, Trump wasn't shy about taking credit. "Thank you to FIFA for doing what was right and reversing a great injustice. President Trump." The president posted Sunday, taking a victory lap on Truth Social. Here's the twist nobody predicted. It didn't even work. The US went on to lose to Belgium 4-1 and was eliminated from the World Cup. Balogun got his reprieve, took the field, and the Americans still crashed out in a blowout. So this wasn't even a case where the political interference bought the result it was supposedly designed to buy. It just bought outrage. And the outrage came fast from multiple corners of European football. Let's go through who actually said what. Because this wasn't just a couple of grumbling politicians. This became a coordinated, continent-wide pushback within days. First, the lawmakers who started the whole push. 3 MEPs, Barry Andrews, Lara Wolters, and Niels Fuglsang, put out a joint statement that pulled no punches. European Parliament lawmakers Barry Andrews, Lara Wolters, and Niels Fuglsang said in a joint statement that FIFA's decision to change the rule on red card suspensions mid-term is a disgrace and a perversion of justice. That's about as blunt as an official parliamentary statement gets. They went further, tying it directly to the pattern with Infantino and Trump. Once again, we've seen Infantino and FIFA surrender to the demands of the Trump administration, said the statement by the lawmakers, who added that 35 colleagues have so far joined their petition. 35 signatures just days into the campaign. That number would grow a lot, but we'll get to that. Second voice, UEFA, the actual governing body of European football. This wasn't some outside group with an axe to grind. This is the organization that runs the Champions League, the Euros, everything. And UEFA didn't mince words either. UEFA, European football's governing body, described it as unprecedented, incomprehensible, and unjustifiable. While the Belgian Football Federation has launched a formal challenge against Balogun's eligibility. Third voice, someone inside the European Commission itself. European Commissioner Glenn Mikulev, whose portfolio includes sport, also called the reversal the wrong decision. That's an actual EU official, not just a member of parliament, weighing in on a football disciplinary call. That almost never happens, and a fourth voice worth hearing. Someone who used to run UEFA's own communications, giving the outside football world perspective. It's completely against the rules and the status of FIFA, and it is quite a scandal. William Gaillard, former director of communications and public affairs for UEFA, told Euronews flagship show Europe Today on Tuesday. So within roughly 48 hours of Balogun stepping onto that pitch against Belgium, you had European lawmakers, the continent's own football governing body, a sitting European commissioner, and senior football administrators all converging on the same conclusion. Something had gone wrong, and it traced straight back to Infantino's phone call with Trump. Infantino, for his part, wasn't backing down. He put out his own defense of what happened, insisting the process was untouched by politics. Infantino defended his position by stating, "FIFA's judicial bodies are independent. They operate autonomously, apply the FIFA disciplinary code, and decide cases based on the applicable regulations and the specific facts before them." During our conversation with President Trump, I explained that there was an ongoing legal process involving FIFA's independent judicial bodies, and that the case would be decided in due course by the competent bodies. That is how FIFA's system works, and it is a principle that I will always uphold. That's the position he's held onto through everything that follows. He took the call, he talked to Trump, but he says he never touched the outcome. The problem for Infantino is that almost nobody in Brussels is buying it. And what started as 3 MEPs and a strongly worded joint statement was about to turn into something with real institutional weight behind it. So here's where this stops being a spat between a few outspoken politicians and Infantino, and starts becoming an actual formal process with numbers and deadlines attached. A group of members of the European Parliament on Tuesday launched an initiative calling for an investigation into Infantino's role in the decision, Euronews reported. That initiative wasn't a tweet, it was a physical letter, addressed to real institutions with real authority over European football. The letter, seen by Euronews, is addressed to the 27 football associations of the European Union, urging them to take formal action with FIFA by requesting an investigation into the decision-making process behind the reversal of Balogun's suspension. Think about what that means practically. This isn't Brussels asking Brussels to investigate, it's Brussels asking every national football federation in the EU, the actual FIFA member associations with actual voting power inside FIFA's own structure, to turn around and demand FIFA investigate its own president. The letter laid out exactly why they thought this was the moment to act. We feel that it is time for European football associations, all of whom are member associations of FIFA, to intervene and ask that FIFA investigate the Balogun's case decision. And the deadline pressure was real. This wasn't a slow-burning parliamentary process that would take months to gather signatures. The Parliament's letter was initiated by MEPs Barry Andrews, Renew Europe, Lara Wolters and Niels Fuglsang, Socialists and Democrats, and is currently circulating among lawmakers to gather signatures ahead of a deadline of 6 p.m. CET on Wednesday. A hard cutoff within days of the incident itself. That's how fast this moved. By the time that Wednesday deadline actually hit, the number had exploded. What started as 35 signatures had more than doubled. Pressure is mounting on Infantino as 72 members of the European Parliament MEPs have officially written to the heads of the 27 EU football associations. The group is demanding an immediate investigation into the decision-making process that allowed Balogun to escape a red card suspension during the World Cup. The move comes after it was revealed that US President Donald Trump personally contacted Infantino to lobby for the player. 72 lawmakers, that's not a fringe protest. That's a meaningful bloc inside a 720-seat parliament, cutting across multiple political groups, all agreeing on one target. The finalized letter got specific about what they wanted federations to actually do, and they pointed straight at FIFA's own rulebook to make the case. The MEP's letter stated, in light of the decision taken on Sunday to suspend the implementation of an automatic one-match suspension, we feel that it is time for European football associations, all of whom are member associations of FIFA, to intervene and ask that FIFA investigate the aforementioned decision-making processes. FIFA's statutory rules and code of ethics provide a very clear basis for member associations to intervene and demand an investigation. They didn't just gesture vaguely at the rules, they cited chapter and verse. Article 4.2 of the FIFA statutes outlines the principle whereby FIFA remains neutral in matters of politics and religion, and Article 15 of the FIFA Code of Ethics states that all football officials must remain politically neutral, and provides for strong sanctions for violations. That's the legal foundation the whole push rests on. Not vague outrage, but an actual clause in FIFA's own constitution that Infantino is bound by as its president. The letter framed the responsibility back onto the federations themselves, almost daring them not to act. Member associations have an important role to play in ensuring that rules are upheld and that those who break them are held accountable, the group of European lawmakers wrote. In that regard, we urge you to add your voice to recent calls in support of an investigation into Gianni Infantino's links to President Trump. And crucially, this letter didn't stand alone. It referenced other pressure, already building from inside football itself, pressure that had actually started months before Balogun ever got sent off. In that regard, we urge you to add your voice to recent calls in support of an investigation into Gianni Infantino's links to President Trump. From MEPs and from the Norwegian Football Federation, that Norway reference matters a lot, and it tells you this Balogun uproar wasn't a one-off spark. It landed on top of a fire that was already burning. Back in the spring, the Norwegian Football Federation, led by its president Lise Klaveness, had already gone to FIFA's own ethics committee over an entirely separate issue. Tied to the same relationship, the Norwegian FA NFF has confirmed it is backing an official complaint against FIFA president Gianni Infantino over an alleged breach of political neutrality rules. The NFF's letter backs the complaint by NGO Fair Square to the FIFA Ethics Committee, demanding an investigation over alleged breaches of neutrality by Infantino. That complaint centered on the ceremony where Infantino handed Trump FIFA's brand new Peace Prize. During the World Cup draw, the Fair Square complaint alleges Infantino and FIFA leaders violated FIFA's code of ethics, which requires political neutrality, by backing Trump and awarding him the Peace Prize, and requests an investigation into how the prize originated. Klaveness had been saying this for months, publicly and repeatedly. In April, Klaveness publicly expressed her support for Fair Square's complaint and said the FIFA Peace Prize should be abolished. She wasn't shy about acknowledging the friction it created either. "We have sent it, and it is causing some political reactions," said Klaveness, "but it is sent, and that is checked off. We will follow up, push forward request meetings, and build momentum on this as soon as the World Cup is over." So when the European Parliament's letter cited Norway alongside itself, it wasn't inventing a new grievance, it was plugging into a complaint that had already been simmering for weeks, giving the whole push a much longer paper trail than a single red card could produce on its own. Now here's where it stops being just Parliament versus Infantino, and turns into something closer to a full-blown pylon from every direction European and international sport governance can throw at him. Start with UEFA, because their statement only got sharper as the week went on, where the initial reaction called the decision unjustifiable. The fuller statement dug into exactly why that mattered for the sport as a whole. The Union of European Football Associations, the governing body of soccer in Europe, wrote in a statement that the reversal crossed a red line, calling it unjustifiable. When the certainty of rules is no longer guaranteed by its guardians, the integrity of the game is at stake and the credibility of a competition is undermined, the organization said. That's UEFA, not a rival organization looking to score points, but the body that sends its own member nations into FIFA's tournaments, publicly stating that FIFA's president let the rules bend for one government's convenience. And then there's a second, entirely separate track opening up, the Olympic movement. This is a body most fans never even think about in connection with FIFA, and it's now circling too. Infantino could also face a probe by the International Olympic Committee, IOC, after a human rights group said Wednesday it would file a complaint. That human rights group is the same one behind the Norway-backed complaint, Fair Square, and they're widening their target well beyond the Peace Prize ceremony. The lawmakers are asking the national football associations of the EU countries to spur the FIFA Ethics Committee to investigate Infantino, and whether pressure from the Trump administration was a factor in the lifting of the suspension, as well as other potential breaches of political neutrality, like awarding Trump the FIFA Peace Prize. The IOC angle exists because of a technicality that actually gives it real teeth. The IOC cites neutrality among fundamental principles of Olympism for sports bodies like FIFA, and has jurisdiction over Infantino since he joined its exclusive group of 100+ invited members in 2020. Infantino isn't just a football administrator anymore, he's an IOC member in his own right, which means the Olympic body's own neutrality rules apply to him personally. Fair Square made their intentions explicit. Fair Square will file a complaint to the International Olympic Committee, IOC, regarding FIFA President Gianni Infantino's repeated breach of political neutrality rules, the London-based sports and human rights NGO said in a statement Wednesday. And the IOC's own president confirmed the ball was already rolling in their direction, even before the complaint formally landed. The pledge to file a formal complaint to the IOC Ethics Commission came one day after the Olympic body's president Kirsty Coventry told reporters none had yet been received. Obviously, if they do, they would look into it, Coventry said Tuesday, in an online news conference when asked about the Balogun controversy, fueled by the Trump administration lobbying FIFA and Infantino. She'd already flagged that the IOC was watching the whole saga unfold, even without a formal complaint on her desk yet. Yes, we have been obviously watching everything play out. The IOC president had said earlier when asked about interference in field of play issues by the World Cup co-host nation, which also will stage the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. That last detail matters more than it might seem. The next Olympics is in Los Angeles. If precedent gets set now that a head of state can lean on a global sports body and get away with it clean, that's not just a FIFA problem anymore. It's a problem the IOC has to think about walking into its own American-hosted games 2 years from now. Meanwhile, back in Brussels, the letter push wasn't just growing in signature count. It was growing in institutional memory too. Journalists covering it made clear this had become a pattern, not an isolated incident. Wednesday's letter was the second members of the European Parliament have sent in recent days, raising questions about Infantino's ethics and pressing for decisions the organization has made in connection with Trump to be investigated. One of the MEPs behind the push, speaking to Euronews, put the stakes in almost moral terms rather than legalistic ones. Football should unite people, not serve as a platform for political favoritism. When the president of FIFA blurs the line between sport and politics, it is the integrity of the game that is put at risk. By that point, the number of signatures on record with different outlets ranged between the mid-50s and 72, depending on when exactly the count was taken. The Dane is one of 3 initiators of an open letter. Officials said there were 55 parliamentary signatures so far. Numbers were still climbing even as the story broke across different news cycles. A sign this wasn't a one-day flash of anger, but a campaign gathering steam in real time. And through all of it, FIFA's institutional answer stayed remarkably consistent, almost scripted. FIFA has said the lifting of the suspension was a decision of a disciplinary committee. Not Infantino personally, a committee. That's the wall FIFA keeps putting up against every single one of these fronts. The Parliament, UEFA, the IOC track, the Norwegian complaint. Committee decision, independent process, nothing to see here. But with Parliament, UEFA, a European Commissioner, a national federation, and now potentially the IOC all circling the same man over the same pattern of behavior, that wall was starting to look thinner than FIFA wanted to admit. To understand why this red card blew up into a full institutional crisis, instead of just a one-day football story, you have to understand exactly how close Infantino and Trump had already gotten before Balogun ever touched the ball. This didn't start this year. It goes back to Trump's first term, right after the joint North American bid won hosting rights. Trump's own interest in soccer grew after the US won the right to co-host the tournament back in 2018. During the Republicans' first term, and he hosted Infantino at the White House. The FIFA president, who took office in 2016, made an impression by handing Trump red and yellow cards, joking they could be used on the press. From there, the relationship just kept compounding. Since then, the pair's relationship has only grown. In 2020, they had dinner together at the Global Economic Summit in Davos, where Infantino called Trump my great friend. Infantino even showed up for one of Trump's biggest diplomatic moments of that term. That same year, Trump invited Infantino to the White House for the signing event for the Abraham Accords, which sought to normalize diplomatic relations between Israel and several Arab countries, as Infantino was shoring up FIFA's own ties with Saudi Arabia. Fast forward to Trump's second term, and Infantino wasn't just attending ceremonial events anymore. He was publicly cheerleading. After Trump's second-term inaugural rally, Infantino declared on Instagram, "Together we will make not only America great again, but also the entire world." That's the head of the supposedly neutral global governing body of football, publicly echoing a US president's campaign slogan. The relationship went physical too, in the sense that Infantino kept turning up wherever Trump was on the world stage. Infantino is often at Trump's side. He even showed up at a Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt last year. Then came the moment that really lit the fuse for everything that followed, the Peace Prize. FIFA invented an entirely new award, seemingly out of nowhere, and gave it to Trump. The most tangible product of the close ties between Infantino and Trump came in the form of FIFA's inaugural Peace Prize, which was created in November, not long after Trump complained he had been snubbed for the Nobel Peace Prize. The FIFA prize did indeed go to the US president, whom Infantino praised for his unwavering commitment to advancing peace and unity throughout the world. The ceremony itself was full production, a trophy and a medal, presented like an Olympic honor. During the 2026 World Cup draw in December, Infantino awarded Trump a golden trophy with his name on it, as well as a medal to hang around his neck. Trump ate it up publicly. "This is truly one of the great honors of my life," Trump said at the ceremony. Adding that, "Most important, I just want to thank everybody. The world is a safer place now." Nobody outside FIFA's inner circle has ever gotten a straight answer on how that prize actually came to exist or why Trump specifically won it. Infantino praised Trump without ever really explaining the criteria, and reporting since has confirmed that gap. FIFA has never publicly clarified the criteria or process used to select Trump for the honor. And it's not like this was Infantino's first rodeo cozying up to a controversial leader hosting a World Cup. In addition to his friendship with Trump, Infantino has cozied up to authoritarian leaders of other World Cup host countries, including Russia, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. He claims that doing so, in Trump's case, is crucial for FIFA to pull off a successful tournament. What makes the American chapter of this story sting more than Russia or Qatar ever did is the history. The US government isn't some passive observer of FIFA's ethics. It's the government that once took FIFA down. The chumminess with FIFA is especially notable because the US government, including the FBI, the Justice Department, and the IRS, was instrumental in exposing FIFA's biggest corruption scandal in 2015. So watching Infantino now court warm access to the same government's sitting president struck plenty of observers as a strange full circle, and it went beyond ceremony. By the time the World Cup itself kicked off, Infantino was routinely seen at matches surrounded by Trump's own cabinet. Trump has yet to attend a World Cup match, though Infantino has taken in matches with members of the Trump administration, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and FBI Director Kash Patel. And the plan was for that closeness to be on full display at the very end of the tournament. Trump is planning to join Infantino for the World Cup final and award the trophy to the winning team, Infantino said in a Fox & Friends interview last month. Even Infantino's own public defense leaned into the friendship rather than away from it when he addressed the fallout directly. The highly contentious call comes on the back of Infantino's campaign to strengthen relations with Trump, the leader of the co-host of the biggest World Cup ever. On Monday, in response to the fallout over the Balogun decision, Infantino said he had been in regular discussions with Trump about the World Cup. So when critics look at the red card reversal, they're not looking at an isolated phone call. They're looking at the latest data point in years of Infantino building his entire presidency around access to whoever's sitting in the Oval Office. First during Trump's first term, all through Trump's return, right up to a golden trophy with Trump's name engraved on it. That's the backdrop the European Parliament's letter landed on. And it's why 72 signatures came together so fast. This wasn't lawmakers reacting to one bad disciplinary call. It was lawmakers reacting to a pattern they'd been watching build for over a year. So where does all of this actually leave Infantino, and what happens next? FIFA's official response has stayed on message from the very first day this broke, and it hasn't moved an inch since. Infantino keeps returning to the same defense, almost word for word, every time a reporter or a lawmaker puts the question to him. That is how FIFA's system works, and it is a principle that I will always uphold, said Infantino. He's also acknowledged that the criticism has reached him directly, even while insisting it changes nothing about the process. He also acknowledged in the statement that he had seen the public comments regarding the decision, of which there were many from different soccer associations across Europe. But the pressure isn't a single letter anymore, it's become layered, coming from institutions that don't normally coordinate with each other. You've got the European Parliament's 72 signatories pushing national federations to act. You've got UEFA on record calling the whole episode a crossed red line. You've got a sitting European commissioner calling it the wrong decision. You've got Norway's federation with a live ethics complaint already sitting at FIFA's own door. And now you've got the IOC watching from the sidelines, with a human rights group promising to file formally against Infantino personally, using his own individual membership as the hook. That's 5 separate tracks, all converging on one man, all within the same few weeks. What's genuinely uncertain is whether any of this actually forces FIFA's hand. FIFA's ethics committee is, on paper, independent, the same independence Infantino keeps citing as his defense. Whether that committee actually opens a formal inquiry into its own president, based on pressure from an outside parliament that has no direct authority over FIFA's internal rules, is still an open question. The European Parliament can write letters and gather signatures, but it cannot compel FIFA to do anything. The real lever sits with the 27 EU football associations the letter was addressed to. Whether they actually escalate this inside FIFA's own Congress, where member federations do have a voice, or whether the letter quietly gets filed away once the World Cup ends and headlines move on. There's also the matter of what an investigation could even conclude. Infantino has been consistent that he never told FIFA's disciplinary body what to decide. He says he just relayed that a legal process was underway. Whether a probe finds daylight between that account and what actually happened behind closed doors is the entire question this fight is about. Nobody outside FIFA's inner circle has that answer yet. What isn't in question is the scoreline on the pitch, which ended up almost beside the point. Balogun got his reprieve, played against Belgium, and the Americans still went home. The US went on to lose to Belgium 4-1 and was eliminated from the World Cup. All of this political fallout, all these letters and ethics complaints and IOC statements, over a suspension that didn't even change the result it was fought over. And Claveness, the one figure in this story who'd been pushing back on Infantino's neutrality, long before Balogun's name ever came up, made clear this isn't going away just because the tournament will eventually end. We will follow up, push forward request meetings, and build momentum on this as soon as the World Cup is over. That's really where this stands right now. Infantino still holds the presidency. The trophy still has Trump's name on a version of it somewhere in FIFA's archives. The final is still being planned with both men expected on that stage together. But there's now a formal paper trail, 72 signatures in Brussels, a live complaint at FIFA's own ethics committee, a human rights group circling the IOC, and UEFA on record saying the credibility of the whole competition took a hit. Whatever happens with the actual investigation, that paper trail doesn't disappear. It sits there waiting for the next call between a head of state and the man running the world's biggest sport. Because if this is the precedent, it probably won't be the last one. European MPs call for probe of FIFA boss Infantino over red card suspension, Al Jazeera. European Parliament to ask for probe into FIFA boss Infantino over Balogun red card, Euronews. European lawmakers demand investigation into FIFA time. Gianni Infantino under fire as 72 EU members demand investigation, Yahoo Sports. European lawmakers demand investigation into FIFA president, AOL. EU Parliament members urge probe into FIFA boss after Balogun scandal, Yahoo Sports. Gianni Infantino could face investigations over Trump contact, ESPN. European Parliament against FIFA UNOS, urging an investigation into the links between Infantino and Trump. European Parliament members call for a probe of FIFA president, Fortune. Norway backs FIFA complaint over Trump's Peace Prize, Front Office Sports. Norwegian Football Federation backs complaint against FIFA's Peace Prize for Trump Press TV. Norwegian FA backs formal FIFA ethics complaint over Infantino's award of Peace Prize to Trump, Inside World Football. Norway backs FIFA complaint over Trump's Peace Prize, Yahoo Sports. Norwegian Football Federation asks FIFA to probe Trump Peace Prize, France 24. Norwegian FA supports ethics complaint against FIFA chief Infantino, Al Jazeera. Analysis: Trump's red card call stirs political storm around World Cup, CNN. Trump's red card call stirs political storm around World Cup, Yahoo Sports. Red card furor puts Trump and Infantino's relationship under the spotlight again, Washington Times, https://www.washingtontimes.com/news/2026/Joel/6/red card furor puts Trump and Infantino's relationship